This is Compelling Events, a brand new podcast from B2 Brain, where we have conversations around B2B vertical tech, Industry 4.0, trade shows and events, and enterprise sales with practitioners, executives, and entrepreneurs. And I'm your host, Sridhar, co-founder and CEO at B2 Brain.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to yet another episode of Compelling Events. Today, I have a very exciting conversation lined up for you all with Gopal Krishna, who runs all of the go-to-market efforts for Zetwerk, one of the contract manufacturing high-growth startups, making a lot of waves in North America, Europe, and Asia over the past 8 odd years. Known Gopal for about a couple of years now, and every interaction with him is filled with a lot of learning and a lot of insights that he always has to share about the markets, how business is evolving, huge technology changes that are sweeping the entire manufacturing industry. So very excited to have Gopal here. Gopal, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sridhar. Thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this podcast, and happy to answer any questions or help the audience in general on whatever I know in this area.
Awesome. So I want to start with your journey as an entrepreneur and now as an executive. Can you walk me through that? It's been a fairly atypical journey, I would say, right? So walk me through how's that been?
Sure, absolutely. I started as an entrepreneur. I started my career as an entrepreneur. I'm a mechanical graduate. I'm an engineer. And then I was running a couple of my own companies where I was building mechanical engineering products. And then I met with the team at Zetwerk, got an opportunity to work here around 3 years ago. And since then, I have been working with the team in North America and trying to build the go-to-market motion of Zetwerk in North America. And have experimented with a lot of GTM motions, a lot of marketing programs. And some have been successful, some have not been so successful. But yeah, we continue to iterate and experiment and grow rapidly. We have been growing multiple folds every year. And I think at Zetwerk, we will continue to grow at multiple folds each coming year.
Wonderful. That's exciting. You built a company in 3D printing. What's been the transition like trying to build a business as a founder, then getting acquired, and then running GTM for a fast growing company? I mean, obviously, the scales are very different, I would imagine, from the time you were running your startup, 3D Usher, and then when you joined Zetwerk and now the current scale of the business. So, what's been that transition like?
So as a founder, I would say the problems that I was solving were different from what I solve today. Founder, I was trying to solve a lot of problems, but cash flows and finances were the biggest areas in which I was working. Marketing and go-to-market was important. That was something that I like to do. That was an important part, but not the only part of what I was doing back then. Financials, how to manage cash flows, where to allocate capital, who to hire, and those type of things were the primary problems that I was trying to solve at that time. When I joined Zetwerk, I got a high level of independence. The way Zetwerk operates, or at least I operate within Zetwerk, and the founders have been kind enough to give me that freedom. I have been able to operate pretty independently today as well. So hiring continues to be an important part of what I do at Zetwerk. It was something that was an important part earlier as well. Today, I am not so much working on things like financials and all of that, but I still have a budget to work on in which I have to see how to allocate that budget the most effectively. Uh, so that Zetwerk can maximize its growth potential uh, in that budget. So allocation of budget is something that I do today, but earlier it was like where to get that money from as well was a problem that I was trying to solve, like capital, capital fundraisers and things like that. Today, I don't solve those problems, and it's more about there's a budget that is given by the management and to allocate that correctly to maximize growth for Zetwerk. So these are the two differences in the way I have been working on. or the two key areas that have been different. But the scale of what I was doing earlier and now is also very different. Like earlier, I was thinking of $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 million. Today, we think in hundreds of millions of dollars. Like what to do today to change the trajectory that would then grow the business multiple folds, and it's already a mature business. So what to do also changes. For example, if you're running a GTM motion for a early stage company, you can generate whatever you get, like generate hundreds of inquiries, and whatever you get, you then pick and choose in that. But when you're Zetwerk or an enterprise company, or you are a late stage startup, you're very choosy in the type of people you want to work with. And then things change. It's not just about generating inquiries. Olympics were just passed. India did a good job, Neeraj Chopra. So it's like throwing a javelin, but throwing multiple javelins. So yeah, so it's more targeted, and it becomes tougher. Zetwerk can go and generate a lot of inquiries. I mean, you can run ads and do a lot of GTM motions, and very easily you will get a lot of people and a lot of inquiries. But we don't want to work with all of that. It has changed for me personally, and the way I think today is very different from the way I used to think when I was running a early stage startup. That I think is a big change as well.
So you made a couple of very interesting points, right? You said the things that you do or the kind of go-to-market motions that you want to execute now has to be influencing or changing the trajectory of the current stage of the business, right?
Yeah.
And you also said you have to be very selective and choosy about what sort of GTM motions do you take up, and what do you invest behind, and so on, right? So at a operational tactical level, how does this translate into how you prioritize and work on the kind of initiatives that you do? What does this mean at a more tactical level?
So at a more tactical level, I would say, when you think about what is that you're trying to do, you have any business in the world has a limited budget, has a limited bandwidth. Let's say you have $1 million, you can spend marketing to the whole world, or you can spend that $1 million marketing to or trying to capture a very niche segment of the market, or the segment of the market that is more relevant for you. Any GTM motion, I would say, starts at developing a target account list. That's the basis of whatever you do. How to influence that target account list is something that then becomes a day-to-day activity. And there's so many things that you can do to influence a target account list. But first, creating a target account list, then aligning people right from operations to sales to marketing to program management to sourcing. There's so many functions, especially in our business. It's a complicated business. So aligning everyone that we as a team are going behind these targets, and that's the reason why we are going behind these targets, is an important part of the journey. Once everybody is aligned, and that alignment or the choice of target accounts also depends on everything. For example, and a target account can be built on various things, what your operational capabilities are, or what what's the intent today, or what is happening in the market. For example, shipping today is a problem. So what will change because of shipping? Or there's ADCVD, there are duties that are being applied in the US. So because of that, what will change? So based on all of this, your target account list also evolves. And then when that is there, then how to target and influence them on a day-to-day basis becomes very important. And then you alone cannot do it as a GTM function. You will have to work with a lot of people in the org and continuously align them to be able to achieve success.
You mentioned the point around changes in shipping and challenges around that. If one was to zoom out a little bit and look at the broader manufacturing space, and you run business, or rather Zetwerk has business across all the major geographies in the world. When you zoom out and see what is happening in the manufacturing space, how do you build that point of view? What is changing? I mean, obviously, every industry is getting impacted with digital transformation. Digital technologies are getting into the mainstream in almost every industry, maybe not at the pace at which we would like, but it's happening. How do you build that point of view? What's happening in the manufacturing space itself?
I think a lot has been changing. I mean, this is the most exciting time to be in manufacturing. Most exciting and most difficult at the same time. I mean, depending on where you stand. For Zetwerk, it is exciting. But if you're a supplier of, or you're a sourcing manager of a OEM, it is difficult. So
And why would that be?
because you are dealing with those challenges, for Zetwerk, those challenges are opportunities.
Understood. Okay,
Uh,
got it.
in the manufacturing ecosystem, the way manufacturing ecosystem is built, people change their suppliers only when something has gone wrong or only when there is a significant need for a change. People don't like to change suppliers generally. And this has existed for past many centuries and decades and years. People don't want to change the manufacturing process. People don't want to change the geography of where things are coming from. People don't want to change who they are doing business with, because there are so many things that determine who your supplier is. There is a financial transaction that is going on. There is cost effectiveness that should be there. There are logistical challenges. There's timely delivery that is required. So there are so many technical things as well. Every supplier can't do everything. Like in the world of software, if you have, let's say, a full stack developer, he can develop a lot of things. Uh, and not to say that it's easy, but there are only so many types of software languages and developers who can develop a bunch of things. But in manufacturing, everything is different. There are hundreds of capabilities. There are hundreds of post-processing techniques that are available. There are hundreds of coating techniques that are available. Then there are hundreds of logistical ways in which you can get material from point A to point B. So there are so many parameters. And when you look at all these parameters, there are millions and millions of permutations and combinations that are available to solve any problem. So imagine if I have to manufacture a part that's through one manufacturing process, let's say machining or die casting. You can then do various types of die casting. You can use so many materials, and you can you can manufacture it in India or China or Vietnam or US or wherever. So because of all of this, once a manufacturing supply chain is set, people don't want to change it because it can directly impact the product in the market unless something significantly goes wrong. And that is what has worked in the favor of Asian economies who have done well in manufacturing over the last few decades. And they have done a good job at in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And they were reaping the benefits of what they did, of the good job that they did. But come COVID, and a bunch of things changed. First, manufacturing had to become more localized because people realized that international logistics can have challenges if there are, let's say, pandemics, or if there are geopolitical risks. Logistics can become a problem, and what was attractive from a cost standpoint in a geography that was far away is not uh, attractive anymore, because you still have to get the product in time. So that was one thing that changed. So people started understanding that, okay, you cannot depend on one geography. You cannot uh, be reliant, and you will also have to develop second sources or local sources to be able to manufacture product. That is one thing that changed. And then geopolitics changed. Tariff was introduced, because of which it's very attractive for American companies to manufacture locally in North America than to manufacture in cost-effective geographies in Asia in certain cases. So that changed. Then there were wars, and because of that, you can only buy from so many countries and not buy from so many countries. Then there was this shipping line. First, there was this shipping container shortage, and now there is a shipping line challenge that's happening. So because of all of this, it became very evident for the supply chain industry in general to understand that the reliant supply chain is not just buying from one source. It's just easy. But if you want to build a resilient supply chain, if you want to build a supply chain that cannot be disrupted, you will have to be intelligent about it. And unfortunately, our supply chains have not been intelligent for the last many decades. Zetwerk is a company that is intelligent about supply chain. So Zetwerk, if you come to Zetwerk today, Zetwerk will not tell you that you manufacture parts from India or manufacture parts from Vietnam or China or Asia or US. Zetwerk will look at your problem and then come back and say that this is the best and the most intelligent way to manufacture your parts. Not just now, but for the next decade. And that is what companies need exactly. That is what the world needs exactly. Because if manufacturing is not done properly, it can create a lot of problems for the world. It will have compounding effects. It drives
Right.
inflation.
Mm.
There's so many problems that can happen.
Mm.
So because of whatever happened today, I think people understand that supply chains are not intelligent. They have not been thought about intelligently or entrepreneurially. And anything can change anytime. So you have to de-risk your supply chain. You have to be reliant about it. You have to look at multiple geographies at one time, multiple capabilities, processes, post-processing techniques, uh, and then only you will be successful in the long run, which was not something that people were even thinking. Like they were thinking that, okay, I'll go to this Asian country, provides me the best cost. I will just get what I have. But everything changed in the last 4 or 5 years because of a bunch of different factors.
That's fascinating. It's like the work of a lifetime, I would imagine. And the nature of the problems you're talking are also fairly strategic ones, right? You're talking wars, you're talking, shipping route challenges, and you're talking shipping line problems and stuff like that, like regulatory or additional taxation or additional duties and charges to be paid. It's almost like one never in the normal course of life, outside of the fact that, there's an Amazon or a Blinkit or somebody which drops off, products to your house, one never realizes that there is so much of a shipping dependency on everything else that's happening. This also would naturally mean two parts, right? One is there's probably worldwide competition that you have to kind of handle and work with and overcome and so on. On the other hand, it's a fairly strategic relationship. Almost every customer will build with you. How do you get your GTM team to appreciate the importance of the industry and the nature of changes in the industry? How do you equip them with that?
So fortunately or unfortunately, in our industry, it is not very, like you said and rightly said, every purchase is very strategic in nature, and you are countering global competition for any product or any program in which you are selling into. So that's the first thing. Now, when you are looking at the GTM team, there are teams that are sales teams, there are teams that are marketing teams. There's in our world, there's pricing strategy and pricing teams also, because that also plays a part in winning business. All of these guys first should have understanding of the business. You cannot bring a general marketer or a general sales guy into this type of a business and they will be able to deliver from day one. Anybody will have to understand this business deep, uh, deep down. So, for example, everybody in my team understands the business.
Mm.
And that is something that we realize, that if you bring like somebody who's even a generalist into the business, you will have to equip them with the knowledge, A, of how the industry works, and B, of what's going on in the world. So what we did is that we have got some good marketers. Today we have some good marketers, and there are agencies also who work with us, even the sales people. So sales, we typically try to hire from the industry, people who have worked in the industry, um, in maybe traditional environments, not in modern day companies like Zetwerk, but in traditional day environments. We bring them to Zetwerk, and they have context of the industry. We try to then align them with modern day thought process, or Zetwerk, what we call the Zetwerk thought process of not thinking in percentages about growth, but thinking in multiples.
Mm.
And that's the only kind of alignment that's required for people who come from the industry. Then there are people who are good at their work. For example, there are people who are good at marketing, who understand B2B marketing, but they don't understand the industry. So what we do, we bring them into our team, and then we give them the industry context. It's a very structured process in which we try and give them the industry context.
Mm.
So for example, people in, like, even a content writer in our company needs to understand how factories work, or how die casting works. What is the tolerance limit of a machine part, or a die casted part, like what we can achieve and what we cannot. They need to visit plants. They need to at least have a basic understanding. So we do those type of exercises. Even the agencies who work with us, we first ask them to speak to people within the company. So anybody who works, we dip them into a whole, concoction of the context that we have. Uh, and then they start working on the whole thing. Otherwise, they'll not be able to function. And
Is it-
that helps us, like keeping the language balanced, keeping the strategy balanced, and keeping the execution balanced primarily. And that's what we do.
Okay, so it really is saying, is everybody in the company speaking and understanding a common language about the industry?
Correct.
Okay, fascinating. So is that part of, like, is that baked into the onboarding and enablement of new people that would join the company?
We have built that over time. Yes.
Okay, so it's not just the skills on the job, but it's knowledge about the market. It's about being familiar with, who you're speaking with. How do you get the respect of the customers and the prospects that you're going to talk to, and so on?
Yeah. Even, I mean, it is baked down to the level now that it is a part of job descriptions. So for example, if we are bringing anyone in, we try to see if we can bring that person in, and he or she will be able to appreciate or get aligned to this or not. We have seen more success with a certain type or attributes of people, and we try to bake that into the JD as well. So we, right from that period, we try to incubate people until they become uh, ready for this GTM motion.
I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the manufacturing space in the US itself. Obviously, there has been a lot of evolution. When the costs of shipping are high, people prefer local manufacturing. Now you're competing in that market and potentially are, having suppliers in that market who work with you, and maybe in other geographies as well. How has this changed your go-to-market motion, let's say in the past year and a half or so?
It changes messaging and who you target. For example, let's say earlier, if you were targeting only people who were interested in importing, only buying from outside the country, there's a different messaging and a different GTM play for targeting those people. But then now, when you're targeting people who are domestic buyers in the US, you have a different messaging, you have a different GTM play. How your messaging is delivered also changes, and who delivers your messaging also changes. Buyer persona also changes. I'll take an example. Let's say the businesses that we were building GTM for, the problem statement was that these are the companies who are manufacturing from an Asian geography where tariffs are being employed. Now we have to provide them a solution from tariff-free economies. Now, tariff-free economies are economies like India. So then what you do is you use intelligence, market intelligence, and trade data to determine who's buying from these tariff geographies. And you will get a list of such people. And then you target them via certain messaging that says that you can now buy from tariff-free geographies. So first of all, your buyer persona is people who are buying from a tariff geography. And then your messaging is now you can buy from tariff-free geographies. This is an example. And because my market is North America, the delivery technique more or less remains the same, but the intent keywords, for example, change. For example, tariff mitigation can be an intent keyword, depending on where things are. And I'll talk a little about like what will happen if we are targeting people who are procuring from North America as well. When you're running, let's say, LinkedIn ads, or when you're running, let's say, programmatic ads, or you're using an ABM software to run ads to these people, the type of campaigns will also change based on the intent data, based on what they're searching, based on the size of the company, because companies who are too large will probably have a team in India or other Asian countries. But companies who are smaller may not have a team in India, or where their team is sitting. For example, if a company has, let's say, a team in a tariff geography and US, and they don't have a team in India, that's a good market for us to target, for example. Then all of this will change. Now, when you're talking about a company geographically now trying to prioritize US to purchase. Then the problem statement is to localize stuff, and localization becomes the intent keyword. The buyer also is different. The buyer persona is different. For example, in our world, the buyer who's buying from different geographies is a global commodity manager. But the buyer who's buying locally may be a strategic sourcing manager who's looking at strategy, or a director of strategy who's looking at localization as an initiative to save, let's say, carbon footprint. So your buyer changes, your intent data changes based on which your messaging changes, the delivery mechanism changes, also the nature of the buyer changes, for example, or the buyer persona changes. For example, somebody who has been buying internationally will behave differently digitally than somebody who's been buying locally. They're different. In fact, there are different magazines that they read. There are different websites from which they consume information. Their search patterns are different. Their age is different. Their demographics are different. So you have to then assess both of this. Also look at local trade data. So your platforms on which you're looking at trade data becomes different. And then you have to basically look at all of this, triangulate what your GTM play should be, then come up with a campaign that you then run and hope that it's successful, which in not a lot of cases it is not, but then you iterate. And then you see how it flows in the funnel, and then you continue to iterate.
If there is one consistent hallmark of every interaction with you, it is that you always insist and you always emphasize a lot on iterating and learning. Doing the role that you're doing, there's no other way but to the mindset itself to be focused on that.
Yeah, I mean, building the GTM in a new industry is like going to space. I mean, you don't know what's gonna happen. So you can only you can build a theory and iterate and see what happens in the real world.
This brings me to another question, right? Like you have done several iterations of several GTM motions with specific campaign objectives, and some have worked, some have not worked, and so on and so forth. How do you build a mindset to be resilient, just like the supply chain that you want, that you're building to be resilient?
Mindset to be resilient
Yes.
in the face of constant failure is that, or let's say if there are 100 experiments you're running, 90 will fail, right? Because experiments by their nature
Are bound to,
fail.
correct,
They will
yeah.
fail. The first step of understanding is that you know nothing. If you understand that you really don't know anything, and whatever you are doing is just a triangulation of the data that's available in front of you, there is no way but to continue iterating. What else can you do? Like, you can't give up because this problem needs to be solved. This type of thing has not been done before. Unfortunately, for the markets that we are playing in and the type of business model that we have, there are no companies who are similar and large. There are companies in manufacturing that are large. There are companies in prototyping and small markets that are large. But the place where Zetwerk is playing, there aren't too many companies at the size of where Zetwerk is. Across the world, globally. And this is important for me because sometimes I look for benchmarks of what I can do. And I don't find any because there aren't any. I have done all sorts of research to find such companies, but they're very less. And they have grown over time, and we are trying to hack the time process as well. We are trying to do it faster. So the only thing you can do in such environments is to iterate and understand that probably everything that you are saying is wrong. Probably there are just one or two things that you will go right and you will win. But fortunately, the market that we are playing in, even if one or two of those things are right, we are rewarded significantly. Just because of the nature of type of projects we go after. And that's why we cannot go after a lot of projects. We understand as a team that everything that we are doing probably will fail. And that's the nature of what we are doing. And within those failures, probably one or two things will happen that we wouldn't have thought as well. But because we are running so many experiments, probably a couple of things will work. I mean, for example, when you're running, let's say a display campaign, you don't know which messaging is going to work. Or for example, let's take the example of B2Brain. If I am pulling in data from B2Brain and there are 5 types of account intelligence and talking points that I am getting, which talking point works the best? I don't know unless I test it out. Probably none of the talking points work, but that has not happened, fortunately. A few of these talking points have worked. So then doubling down on those talking points and continuously iterating, that is the only thing we can do.
Wonderful.
And
also
that.
thanks for the B2Brain
so yeah, that's what
it also
I think
makes it
helps
exciting
us,
to be working with you and your
upfront
team,
understanding
because
that
there is
we
so
don't
much
know
of
anything. We are
learning and
here to look
iterate
at
and
data and we don't
improvise
have an
mindset.
opinion. We will just look at data, we will iterate and we will fail. And probably a couple of things will happen that will drive success for us, helps.
The fall conference season is around the corner, right? You have a significant focus on industry events and trade shows and stuff like that, right? Are you in a position to share some broad plans of what are you looking to accomplish over, say, let's say the next 2-3 months?
Absolutely. In the next couple of months, there are two very important trade shows that we are attending. One is RE Plus in September in Anaheim, and the other one is IMTS. Both are important trade shows for the industries that we operate in, and they are both like industry leading trade shows. So we had to be there. The way we look at trade shows is primarily two things. We don't look at trade shows as means to generate inquiries, to just close some business. That's not the objective. And I don't think trade shows should be looked at in that manner. Trade shows are primarily a branding activity, and that's how we look at it. That said, we try to keep this branding more segmented towards our target account list. So we don't want to brand, for example, Zetwerk or our sister company, Unimats, to everybody at RE Plus or to everybody at IMTS. We want to be specific in connecting with the people that we want to connect with within those trade shows. And obviously, everybody is welcome to visit our booth and learn about Zetwerk. And there will be some conversations that we will get from these trade shows where we can close some business. But we take pre-show marketing pretty seriously. So we look at who's coming to the trade show, how many companies are coming to the trade show, who's providing what kind of solutions and how our solutions align with them. And then when we look at all of this data, we know who we want to connect with in these trade shows. And then we do a lot of efforts prior to the trade show to at least ensure that we have a touch point in the trade show. And that touch point can be a conversation, can be a small event, can be a happy hour, can be a meeting, can be any of these type of things, or just like visiting the booth. But it's a touch point in a large GTM motion, and it's important. People need to talk to people who they are doing business with. In our opinion, we think that we should focus on the target account list or accounts that have a similar attribute to our target account list. Nothing happens in a trade show. Everything happens before that. Trade show is just execution. The strategy has been built much before that. So what is that you have when you are in that trade show matters, because it's a significant financial investment as well. And in certain cases, it can just be saying hi, and that's okay as long as that person is in your TAL. And that's a part of your GTM motion. That's a touch point. And that, I mean, in demand base or ABM terms, it will give you engagement minutes, and that increases your funnel velocity, that moves your funnel. So it's a touch point, and that's how trade shows should be looked at. What can also help is keeping the conversation in the trade show most contextual and most current and intent driven, account driven, where they are in the journey, trying to understand what they are thinking, what are the key initiatives they are taking, and that kind of improve the velocity of how these accounts flow in the funnel or in the customer journey.
So it's part of a larger strategy that you have, which is the part of the go-to-market motion that you're already executing, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And you also made an interesting point about focusing on accounts that are in your TAL, target account list, or the ones that are similar to them, showing similar attributes, so that all your energies when you are in person, when the team is flown down and manning the booth. And I was at this Automate show, right? I think I did about I was there for 3.5 days. I probably did some 80,000-90,000 steps or something like that. So it's a crazy energy that you end up spending all those four odd days and stuff. So okay.
So your sales team is there. So you are not also like, there's an opportunity cost as well. So yeah, you have it's a lot of investment for a touch point in your GTM motion. So better be strategic about it.
That's a good point. So I want to slightly switch gears, because now AI is mainstream. Technology is very easy to access and everything can be AI powered and stuff like that. There are people who believe that if you are selling to enterprises, when you're selling, significant value products and solutions, the whole in-person conversation, in-person interaction, those are still very essential in order to build a strong relationship with your prospects and customers.
Absolutely.
Right? How do you reconcile between how much do I invest in person, how much do I invest in digital and stuff? How do you think about it?
The way I think about it is no account can close without field sales. Significant account. More than 6-digit accounts in dollars won't close without a field sales or a field meeting or events marketing or a physical human to human interaction. It's just not possible. Like, at least in our industry, I don't know about others. Marketing, digital touch points and all can help in only two things. First, in the customer journey, move accounts from unaware to aware, and then probably aware to a meeting, to a customer discovery meeting. At best, an opportunity. This is the first motion or the first, objective of digital. And the second objective is to then be top of mind of your accounts and accelerate that velocity of that account. These are the only two things that I think digital can do. Everything else is done by field sales or field marketing people. And that's how it should be. Now, all the tool stack that you have, the GTM stack that you have, all of this is an enabler of these three things. For example, B2Brain. I will again take an example of B2Brain. Where can B2Brain help, for example, in this motion? B2Brain can help you move unaware accounts into opportunity and accelerate that journey by providing context. So you should be able to use that context in your copies, landing page copies, creative copies, email copies, phone call scripts, if you're doing cold calling. That's one. Then when the account is opportunity or beyond, you can use context from B2Brain to then give them messaging or touch points that are again contextual, because this context changes monthly, weekly, daily. When your field sales is going and meeting them, or your field marketing is conducting an event for them, then B2Brain or similar intent driven software or helps prepping them up to provide more context in the conversation, or at least at the back of the mind having that information available with them. So that is how I think technology should be thought about. Technology is there to assist us and make us better. Any sale of a large value will happen without technology. I mean, it's person to person. Technology can, prep the person and make them better. It's like walking from point A to point B versus going in a car. Technology is that car. So all this stack is that thing. All digital stack is that. It is the car, but the guy who's driving is still a human. And that's how I probably think about it.
Nice. That simplicity of the example is really helpful. It kind of drives home the point. Pun not intended. Good. I think this has been very, very helpful, Gopal. One of the purposes and objectives of running this podcast is enable companies, people that are selling into these vertical markets, to learn from practitioners like yourself who've been in the market and who've been doing a lot of work, a lot of iterations, a lot of experiments in your field of operation, which is in the go-to-market motion and stuff. If people wanted to reach out and connect with you and learn from you, what's the best way you would suggest?
They can text me on LinkedIn, or they can ask you for an introduction, and I'll be happy to help. But I'm available on LinkedIn, and I can give you my LinkedIn credential, which you can put.
Yeah, we'll include that. Absolutely. Super. This has been very valuable. How someone like you thinks you've made transition from being a founder to being a GTM executive and running fairly large GTM motion in a space which is like a hotbed of activity and is impacted by a lot of strategic global far-reaching challenges and stuff. So this has been a very, very interesting conversation, Gopal. Thank you so much. Is there any passing thoughts you have for the viewers or the audience?
I would just like to say that whenever I have reached out to Sridhar, he has been very helpful. And B2Brain is something that we use in our GTM motion, and it has been helpful. So happy to talk to anyone about B2Brain as a technology or a part of your GTM stack as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.